I just give this a few seconds because it takes like 3 years to start recording.
Am I looking at Substack?
No. So hi, we're recording right now. You could look at look at the. So I'm trying to explain to John where he could find the articles. If you go to go to the main site, and it's the article with the guy that has the ace coming out of his wrist.
Okay, got it. Yep. The Berkeley Heights Community Watch site. Got it.
Yeah. Dude, I thought I did a good job with your video. Did you like at the end how the bicycle sound went with the logo on the
You
trail?
didn't tell me I had to watch it after you edited it. I thought you. No, I didn't see anything.
I added the logo.
You changed it?
No. So I added the logo, and at the end, there's just like it's this cool logo with a bicycle sound at the end. You'll see it. You should watch the end.
Nice. I'll go. All right, I'll go look. All right, I didn't do that.
Right.
I don't need to watch my.
Are you ready to go, or
is this?
I don't know. Are we ever?
What are we doing?
I've had sake. Just what are we? What are any of us doing? What are you doing?
I thought we were here to have a. Oh God! All right, so
I just want to play.
I guess we're here to kind of talk about what's going on this week. What?
I just want to play stupid. The collaborative model part 1. That should be. That's what we're gonna. Us.
No.
Who we're all following along. Which one?
That, but Shauna's not here, and she's like very.
No, we're talking about the budget.
Oh, New Jersey. Okay, so the one with the
budget.
card coming out of the sleeve, and it's New Jersey Education Report publishes new information on BHPSNJ. 1 large sake for $18. That's it.
That one, right?
Yeah, that's all right.
Thank you.
So there's 2. So we published, just so people know, Sai wrote her second article for New Jersey Education Report, which is kind of a statewide watchdog. And I encourage people just to go to that website, not just to see what Sai wrote, but you'll notice from district to district, there's a lot of concerns in a lot of districts about many of the many similar issues around, transparency and areas of practice that we've been sort of talking about. I tried to reach out to somebody in Asbury Park, a mom who's also a nurse who works for the Asbury Press, but she's also I don't know, she does like a million things. Just to see if we can kind of connect and partner a little bit to see what she's doing there. Anyway, so Sai wrote kind of an op-ed, and it was a very small intro, but the devil is sort of in the details on that. And I wanted to just kind of go over 2 things, and then we can sort of talk about it. There were 2 issues that Sai kind of talked about in that op-ed, and let me kind of share this, and then the 3 of us can talk about this.
Just the 3 of us.
Wow.
Is that how the song is? It 3 of us or 2 of us?
It's Will Smith, and it's just the 2 of us and his boy. Cap. All right, don't mess up a good song.
All right. So there are two letters in there. The first is a letter to the interim county superintendent. And this is the letter that I think everybody's sort of talking about, which is sort of the transfers that were made over a period of, I guess she focuses on 2 periods in 1 paragraph. So she calls attention to the fact that for 2 periods, 600,000 or above, like 636 and 606, the first being in January 22. So the first 6 months of 2022, $600,000 gets transferred out of medical benefits and starts feeding into other lines. And then in February of 23, current year, up to February 23, over another 600K kind of comes out of medical benefits. Now, I actually called the county today and asked them about this, and they wouldn't. The funny thing is, they wouldn't say that our transfers were appropriate. They said as a general practice they were. And so I kind of emailed them back. I spoke to the business guy. I emailed him specifically about this and asking him, is this appropriate? Now, we're also trying to look through state regs to see if the county is actually correct about whether this practice is appropriate. And what's even funnier is other school districts, when we started asking for their stuff, started blacking out their account numbers. making it impossible. Like Florham Park, I think was one example. I'm going off of memory. I don't know if that's true, but at least one school district blacked out the account numbers on their report, making being able to do this kind of thing with their stuff harder. And account numbers are not protected information. Those are code, those are just ways of sort of tracking. So far, am I making sense here, guys, in terms of what the first letter is about?
So you did some due diligence and you went and looked at other schools. Which other schools?
No. Well, no, I think Cy's doing that. I'm just reporting on one piece of it.
Okay.
And that's just sort of that's not anything to say other than it raises my suspicions. Why would we, after we asked for this, why would somebody black out account numbers or lines? And these aren't account numbers that would give us access to a bank. They're just a way of tracking how the money would be going somewhere.
So the account numbers are identifying the transfer's destination or origin, right? Okay.
That's right.
So they're not. So
actually,
they're
I can give an example of that. So what we're really talking about here, and that's a good point, John.
Because transfers you're talking about in between line items on a budget, right? Like from benefits to facilities.
Yeah.
Like,
so
what are
see
the
these numbers here?
About? Okay.
Right. So
it's
easier. Really, I mean, there's 200 pages of this. I mean, my criticism of that article, and really, there's not much you could do, but like basically everything's in here. And so this isn't you'd have to kind of go through back and kind of do the homework yourself. But she does provide a summary of the transfers, and she kind of points out, a couple of items here. March 2022. That looks, if I'm reading this correctly, 157,000 transferred. January 2022, 30K. This can't be right. 400,000. Yeah, I mean, so there's these are the transfer amounts. And I would ask people to sort of look at that article, to sort of look at the summary, the little bit of a snapshot she took, along with the letter about that. I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
Can I talk? I mean, honestly, it's like the
John.
John.
No, you can't. No.
Anything you wanted to say, John? Anything?
No, he never has anything relevant.
I do have a good valid question. Cap, go first. We'll go in alphabetical order.
So my question is actually for you, John Paul. When you talked to the county superintendent, or it wasn't the actual county superintendent, right? It was like
it was the business officer or business something or other. Yeah.
So I think what I heard you say was that to make a transfer from one account to another is a common practice, or it could be. Is there, do you know, or is there research that can be done about, I guess, the protocols that need to be taken if you're transferring? I would imagine if you're transferring a large sum of money from one account that's been approved to be used for like a general supply fund or a general line item, that it would need some sort of approval more than the business administrator just thinking, hey, let's move it. Did you know anything on that?
I think he spoke to that a little bit. He said something about in the software itself. So if I understood him correctly, it was a very quick conversation. So I want to be very clear. I'm just kind of conveying my understanding of it. The one thing I was clear about what he said was that the tentative budget was approved, and that as a general rule, transfers are an acceptable practice. But he didn't really get into our stuff. So I followed up with an email asking very specific questions about that. But so there does appear to be sort of a threshold, or I would use the term threshold, that there's if it passes a certain percentage, then within the software it raises sort of a flag. But the thing is, if you're talking about a $63 million budget, we're talking about a pretty big number. I would have to imagine a pretty big number before that's met, in some type, off of that. I think that I have a lot of suspicions about it though, because we're having a really tough time, or I think Cy's having a really tough time finding the actual regulation or rule or law that allows the transfer or speaks to that. And that's why I think that's why she reached out to find out or to get clarity as to whether or not this was sort of an allowable practice.
I think, all right. In
John Leo, you can speak.
Oh my God. To try to put this in layman's terms, because that's the only language I know.
Yeah.
From what I understand about budgeting is that the budget, I'm going slow. This is normal. The budgeting process is their budget. They can move funds, and they verify this. You can move funds about generally as you wish, as you need to, but there are some limitations. So Cy's having trouble finding out what the rules are about that. Now, what they've done is what you're saying is that they're moving it.
If there are actually, so we're trying to figure out how this is permissible, right?
Okay.
I'd actually be more worried. I'd be more concerned if this were permitted than not permitted. But go ahead.
Okay, right, because they're allowing it. But so what we're alleging here is probably seems to be happening is they're increasing the dollar amount for benefits so that they can they know they have the funds there, get it approved, and then move it out to where they want to put it. So they kind of hide it that way. So it's a shell game. Is that kind of what we're saying is happening?
Well, no. Well, I don't think anyone's alleging that. I think if you were to ask what the appearance is, I think you're talking about two very consistent amounts, 600, and very large transfers, like coming out. So 600
is what allowed for benefits. So 600
No. Those are just the two amounts that were sort of identified in 2022 and 2023. It's not allowed or
that line item.
Well, okay. No. So what I'm saying is, in 2022, 2023, there's two time periods. From January 2022 to June of 2022, there was a total amount of $600K, according to Cy's article, $636K moved out of medical benefits into other lines. And then between from January or through February 2023, another $600K from medical to other lines, right? I don't know if that's a magic number or not. To your question about what are we alleging? I'm not alleging. I'm saying it appears as if, for me personally, I'm not speaking for Cy. For me personally, I would have questions about that, and I think people have asked about. I think Dipty asked about the medical benefits account the last meeting, and that's for Robert. So it's like there's a lot of weird shit that's going on that's making this seem really suspicious, right? They
didn't answer the questions. Cy asked, "What are these transfers going to?" Or something.
Oh, that was like the year before. She said,
"Okay,
I don't remember. I know what the meeting that you're talking about, where she asked about transfers. I'm not sure if it's the same as this, but there was a question about that. Yeah, but you're right.
They questions this time. They're not explaining the transfers,
I think Dipty the last meeting asked about it. I have to go look at the video. I'm just trying to. I was just really surprised. Like, I didn't work on this with Cy. I kind of got this when it sort of came out. Like, I think I knew about it maybe a few hours before it was published. And so I'm trying to digest this as much as you guys are.
So we're talking
about $1.2 million. Go ahead, Laura.
Right. So
Thank you. No, I'm sorry. That's me.
Jesus.
So I think if people are asking, they don't know, like, we don't know, we don't really have any answers, right? We could say that. However, if you were looking to do something nefarious, you would put extra money in benefits, because who's going to argue benefits are budgeted too high, right? Like, it's kind of like a safe haven for funds. And then if you were looking to do secret or special projects, you move that out as the year goes on because nobody's watching you. Would that be a safe?
Yeah.
Right?
No, Laura, you're absolutely right. And so this is the thing that the So this is like this really, I'm so because I tend to break libertarian, I have this like conspiracy thing in my head. I have like
Same.
yeah, I'm a little
libertarian model.
Yeah. And so in my head, the other thing, and I'm glad you brought that up, Laura, because the other thing the county superintendent said, there was a piece that I forgot. He's like, well, for example, medical benefits, people leave, people retire. So basically, like, I get that, and I think that that's fair, but how convenient would it be for hey, look, every school is doing it, and it's a common practice amount of medical benefits, and what would be a better cover, right, for
Right.
that? So my feeling is because of how loose, like, if you're going, so in order to erase any suspicion, I think this really needs to be explained. And I think moving forward, any major transfer that happens ought to be described. There needs to be, why do we have this amount of money available? And by the way, like $600,000, does that mean we under budgeted $600,000 2 years in a row in other lines? Like, why did we need $600,000 to plug other holes 2 years in a row? What, like, that's the other weird thing. It's
But
like for
that's
2
not.
years in a row, there's a $600,000 hole.
Yes, but
That's just
we
has to
talked
be
about this
plugged.
last episode. Remember, we talked about all these
Oh yeah,
special projects that they vote to approve. Like I said the other day, there was some, I don't even know what was going on, major all day road work,
the
digging,
paving, yeah.
paving in Mount Park. Like, is that so? Like this might be nothing. They may say, hey, we had to put this project off, and we had 5 people retire, and we had these funds available, and we figured, hey, let's do
but
it.
Laura, knowing what you know, would you believe him?
No, that's why we're talking about it, because it seems
Right.
shady.
Right. So this is the thing, and to figure out whether this is true, this is the other thing, right? So it goes from one line to another, and so what potentially could happen is that this becomes like a real big maze where money moves here, then the money moves there, and you almost need like a forensic accounting team to figure this out, right? It's I don't know, man. I feel like I would almost be more concerned if the county and the state came back and said, "Oh yeah, this is absolutely fine. You could move $600K out of an account, no problem, without anybody knowing."
So the question is what are medical benefits actually costing us then?
That's a good question.
Can we ask Dr. Forger? Oh wait, he's not on the Finance and Facilities Committee.
He was last
year. The math
Yeah.
PhD's not on the Finance Committee? Weird.
I think they said something about state benefit. I don't know. There's a whole argument. I think there's an explanation to it that was another thing that backfired, but I don't have it on top of mind right now.
The only way to actually figure this out as a constituent is to go find a school that did a presentation on medical benefits, and some school actually publishes this very transparent data and says this is where we spend medical benefits, and they break it down. We don't know what the breakdown is for medical benefits. So when they move out 1.2, so you're saying they moved out 600 times 2, 1.2 out of it in one given full year.
According to what's written here, yeah. According to what's written here, we're talking about.
So we have no idea what the actual cost of that line item is.
Right, and so the argument that they can always use is, well, staff retirement, staff this, staff that, and I don't know, man. So that's fine. Okay, so show us that, but then show us why you had a $600,000 hole 2 years in a row that you had to plug somewhere. And if it wasn't a hole, you just needed that money for something else in those other lines, like show us where that went, right? Like there's just a lot of questions that this brings up. And we're just talking about one account center, which is medical benefits. I don't know what's going on. Like we're just talking about one area, right? I don't know what's going on in the others.
I'm pretty sure. And I still have to go to township and ask about the budget and then display it for Berkeley Heights Community Watch. But I'm pretty sure, like you found out, transfers are common. So we should find out how the township uses transfers and find out how they use it and see if they're doing it the same way. And then they can explain it. We can see a transparent account of it.
Yeah, I think a district and a school. I think you're right. I think that would be a good way of looking. That's a good idea. Having Liza or somebody come in here explaining how the town does it, and seeing if there's something analogous. But, I think for me, I just feel like I don't think anyone is alleging. So when I think when we use the term deceptive practice,
That's a good word.
Huh?
It's a good word. I like it.
Right.
EP.
So this isn't actually speaking to this. I'm not saying this isn't speaking to whether the business administrator or superintendent or board are being deceptive. They may
are.
very well be. I don't know. But in other words, this being allowed to me, if it's legal, kind of creates a breeding ground for deception. And I don't care that $1.2 million is a fraction of $63 million. It's that thinking that, oh, it's only $1 million that probably got us to $63 million and the highest per pupil cost than any other district, right? So if we're quote unquote on a fiscal cliff and we're sloppy on our budgets by about $600K, because hey, we had to fill $600K in a hole somewhere that we somehow we needed to use that money somehow. I think that just needs to be explained a lot more clearly, right?
Right. And we have a board meeting once a month. I don't know that it would be difficult for either Julie or someone from the finance committee to say, hey, we had 5 people resign and we were able to take the money from benefits and complete blah 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 project, right?
No, I mean, when I was a director, when I was a director for a nonprofit, actually in 2 nonprofits, we would have quarterly meetings with our CFO, and anything that was the difference was our CFO held us accountable. So
What?
yeah, that's right. We weren't
that?
That's
we
un-American.
weren't their friends. Yeah, I mean, we were friends, but it wasn't like nobody liked to be around her. That's you want a CFO where you kind of get nervous. And you would get asked hard questions about your budget, But I'm sorry, any other thoughts on this, guys?
No.
I think we clarified that pretty well. So,
but there's a second piece that I think we're missing. I'm sorry?
She sent it to the comptroller.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
good.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I got to get her address out of here. So the second piece that I think is important to sort of look at is sort of this adjustment that's being asked for. So there was sort of an increase. So we're asking for an increase in medical costs or in that line, but there were about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items out of the 7. It looks like, again, according to this article, and if I'm reading it correctly, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like about 5 items of supporting documentation out of 7 that weren't really supplied or partially supplied. And somehow that tentative budget was approved. So I don't know if the district had provided that, and that's why it was approved, or if they approved it without these items in place. So the question is let's talk about the county, right? So we want to say that the county somehow does this due diligence in terms of looking at this budget, and it doesn't rubber stamp it. But if you kind of remember the reconfiguration and all that stuff with the verbal approvals, and we can't do anything, and really just a lot of mixed information, I really don't know if I have a lot of confidence in the county either in terms of their oversight, either because of capacity or just, whatever.
Well, but
so
I
that's
think because I think rules around budget are pretty relaxed. I don't think there's a lot of, with the details we're getting into, I don't think there's a lot of limitations or rules on it.
No. Now, again, another good point that I think Cy herself made to me was, look, in a private entity, in a private world, in companies, it's a good thing to have money set aside for contingencies. But that's, you call it that. You call it a contingency fund, right? It's not squirreled away. I don't know. Any other thoughts on this, guys?
No.
Any skepticism about this?
Yeah.
I just feel like this is too much of a mistake for the, are they that bad? There's a part of me that feels like this is a big deal, but then there's a part of me that's it can't be that bad, right? They can't be this messed up.
I think it can be, but I also think that there's the possibility that there's a reasonable explanation.
I know, but I don't know if I believe it.
Oh no, there isn't. But I mean, there could be.
Right, and there might be. but the issue is you have this context of board members getting yelled at when they ask questions, the budget being treated like a state secret, and so it gives the impression or the feeling that there's something that is sort of awry, right? And then when you have something that looks like that, alarm bells start going off, I guess. All right. I don't know. I thought, I feel like this was a good letter. And if, the reality is if this is all really proper and good, that's a bigger problem in my mind. And it leads to another bigger discussion about like our school's really accountable for their money. I also think it's a good note to the district that, hey, people are paying attention and are reading this on a line by line thing. So you have to do better than a 3-page PowerPoint that's vague about the budget next year. Yeah. I know I'm talking. Do you guys any other thoughts on this before I close this?
No,
off?
I just think that we're learning that there's nobody policing this except us. Right.
And I think that's true. And I guess, man, I'm worried that this is acceptable. Like they're going to come back and like, this is fine. It's fine to do this.
I think you're right. I think you're right. It's fine to do this, but it doesn't mean there's something not going on. It doesn't mean that they didn't deliberately put funds in an account just to fund other accounts.
Oh no, I agree.
I think that's what we're saying. I think we're saying that they found a legal way to basically hide funds. They're moving the ball.
That's the alarm bell. But even if everything's fine, even if they explain, hey, yes, look, teachers did retire, and hey, we had $600,000 worth of unexpected expenses, and when you look at that doesn't make sense. That doesn't seem like what it is. But if everything seems to make sense, the big concern really is, for me, how are you able to transfer over $1 million without providing a very clear explanation to the public? Right? That's like concern number one. And then from there, there's very, very reasonable concerns to where my head always goes, which is sort of the wild conspiracy theories.
But I don't think it is a conspiracy. I think they just are getting used to hiding stuff because they don't want the criticism. Yeah. I don't think there's actually a unreasonable response to this. There probably is a very good reason to do it.
But I haven't told you half the stuff I'm thinking, John.
But there's probably a better, maybe there's a better way to do it. Either way, they could explain it, but they won't, and that's why now they get the questions.
All right.
I don't know what you said. I don't listen to you.
No, that you're right. Like I don't think what I'm saying is all that outlandish, but there are things I have thoughts in my head about this stuff that sometimes kind of go into left field a little bit, and I have to bring myself back.
The thing is you send it to the comptroller, the county, and the people who look at this, and they should. I mean, maybe transfers were acceptable for 5% transfers, like $10,000 out of that account or 20, and then our school gets bold enough to move $600,000 and $1.2 million, and then somebody like the comptroller might be like, "Well, wait a minute, that's not what the intent was." So it's good that Cy's raising that flag.
Oh, I think it's great. I know that there are going to be people like, "Oh my God, she's causing trouble." Look, even if nothing comes out of this, I'm glad that the school is like, "Oh my God, someone's following this." And when there's $1 million being transferred out, we better be telling people why that is, right? But I do think that, like, in my opinion, my personal opinion, this seems really, really suspect. Like fiscal cliff, Jeff, we have 600,000 that we could throw around 2 years in a row. Like, how do you end up in a fiscal cliff when you end up finding over $1.2 million over the course of a year that you didn't think you would have had? Right? You had $1.2 million of like just free money. Because if we're going to believe what's being put out there, teacher retirements, blah, blah, blah. With that, how are we at a fiscal cliff? And those are just questions I'd want answered. I mean, a lot of questions I'd want answered. Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about other than this?
Nope. You want to talk about something?
No.
Okay, good.
What's up,
John,
big
you
guy?
want to plug your hippie commune protest march across the woods?
If you stop breaking up, maybe. Well, my what? My thing. Are you coming? If you're coming, yeah, I'll talk about it.
No, it's a Saturday. You guys should do it on Sunday. But plug your trails thing. I think it's a good thing.
It was April 22nd. Earth Day on Saturday, we're going to do a walk of an RVR trail. This is a big deal because we have a design for a bridge. We actually have a preliminary design for a bridge to go over 22 and reconnect an old railroad track that will connect every community and neighborhood between Summit and Roselle Park. And we're getting people out there to walk it and to get familiar with it and see what's going on. It's by Galloping Hills Golf Course and the Acme and Kenilworth, about that area. And then we wind up at Two Town Brewery at noon with live music and beer.
Okay, and now this project includes both bike trails and walking trails, right?
It's a single paved path that's wide enough. I think the standard is like 8 or 10 feet, and it allows for biking and walking. It's the standard that you're starting to see around the country. It's a wide enough paved path that's acceptable for biking and walking 2 ways, and it's the goal is to get it to go 7 miles, and most of it's existing rails tracks that it will just get paved over basically.
Now, with Union County Connects, is that like an organization you join, or is it just more like what is that? Like what?
It's a volunteer organization you can join and get on newsletters, and then you can donate. You can do anything. But it's a 501c. They have 3 voting board members, and then a couple of trails development coordinators, myself and another guy named Bill, and we just basically coordinate different efforts around the county. So it's a nonprofit because sometimes when you apply for grants and you get this stuff rolling, you need a nonprofit to make the application. A lot of grants just require that you need the nonprofit. Sometimes it's the only entity that can do it. But we're kind of driving the conversation among. So the event on the 22nd is to show the commissioners of Union County and other politicians, basically people who can help us raise funds, that there is public interest in this. I mean, we're talking about new developments, old townships and homes. People can walk right out onto the path and then walk to the grocery store. They can walk to the brewery. They can run, walk. Yeah, and the other thing is that when you
hop.
They can hop. I didn't think about that. We have to start promoting the hopping. And the bridge over 22 is a safety issue because apparently there's a lot of deaths on 22 that is people actually trying to cross the highway. It's like Frogger.
So if I wanted to create like I'm thinking like I want to create like a Union County Disconnects just to like troll your organization.
See, I welcome that. I think that'd be great.
My only purpose is to fight. I don't even have an interest in this. I just want to make your life miserable.
What are you going to promote?
Like, I don't know, like
Hopping.
No bridges and like paved streets everywhere.
I'm in. I'll give you $5.
All right, man. Laura just dropped out because she doesn't want to hear us anymore. I'll talk to you later, man.
All right, man. See you. Bye.
Peace out.